Welcome to another episode of the Cackle, where we meet with Midwest changemakers and connect the dots between economic trends and the lived experiences of people navigating them. I'm Emily Heinz, the founder and managing director of Entry Point. At Entry Point, we partner with economic development organizations and nonprofits to foster inclusive and vibrant communities across the Midwest through research and community-focused programming. So if you are looking for an insider's take on the opportunities and challenges facing today's most inspiring change makers, you'll definitely want to join the conversation. If you also, after this conversation, are looking for more research on Detroit or on the entrepreneurial community in the Midwest, you can go to entrypointmi.com and download all of our research. And so if this is your first time with us, welcome. And if you're a repeat cackler, we are glad to have you back. And joining me today is Marc Howland. He's the CEO and founder of Breadless. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. So grateful to be here.
Yay. So I got introduced to you by, I also said this prior to us going live, but I'll tell the audience. So I got introduced to Marc by Jared Stasek, everyone's favorite venture capitalist. And everyone claims him as their best friend. So my best friend, Jared, introduced me to Marc and said that Marc was just like, he's like, oh, you got to meet this guy. He's just like the best. Like, he's got such a great story. Like, he's doing like, such amazing things. And I was like, wow, like a venture capitalist being like espousing on the greatness of Marc Howland. So I was like, definitely.
You're setting a high bar.
I know. Don't say anything silly on this interview, because otherwise we're going to be like, what was he thinking?
Right. Like, well, yeah. What happened here?
So talk a little bit about sort of like your journey to being a co-founder of Breadless. And you have kind of a unique background, which I really like for like people who are kind of thinking about starting a business, but are like, well, I don't have any experience in that or anything. So talk a little bit about like your journey to founding Breadless.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Well, how far back do you want me to go?
I don't know. I would say like going off to college and like what you did there, and then like what you kind of thought your career would be like after that.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Brown University for college, but it's actually quite humbling, even sort of how I got there. You know, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and a small house with two dogs, my sister, my mom. She was a public defender, committed her entire life to improving the quality of life of others, and raised my sister and I mostly by herself. You know, she was divorced from my father when we were 3, and we actually lost my father when I was 11 years old. And so my mom really just was a super mom, if you will. Like, she worked every day, got up at 3 a.m. to take care of my sister and I, and still never missed a sports game. Like, was a super fan, if you will. And anybody who knows my mom would tell you that. And she also really instilled in my sister and I that, you know, despite what we went through, that we could accomplish anything and that we get through it together. And that was like a major motivating driving force in my life. And so we were very fortunate to have her. And then ultimately I did really well academically in grade school, and also pushed myself to be a really great athlete. And that's where I think journey to college even started, because I remember after a football practice once, this guy named Mr. Sismadia came up to me and my mom and said, have you considered university school for him? And we're like, university school? Like, what is that, a college? And yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same thing. And this was a private all boys school, tens of thousands of dollars a year that we could have never afforded. And he took us up there, showed us around, and decided that they wanted me to go to school there. So they gave me a full scholarship to go to that school. And I would say that school really sort of changed the trajectory of my life and gave me a lot of opportunities I wouldn't have otherwise had. So very grateful for that opportunity. So from there, then did really well at that school, did really well at football and track also, and then had an opportunity to go to Brown University. So I was a business econ major there and played football and ran track as well, and had no idea what I wanted to do. You know, I no one in my family had worked into finance or really been like a significant entrepreneur or anything like that. And I remember just going to football practice and talking to a couple buddies and saying, well, what careers are you going into? And a couple people this was back in 2010, were saying, well, you're a business econ major and you have great grades, so why don't you consider investment banking or finance? So
I like that. Why don't you consider investment banking? Consideration. Oh, you go to classes, right? You should be an investment banker. Like that.
And mind you, Emily, I have no idea what that means. I'm like, they had mentioned this firm, Goldman Sachs. I didn't even know what that was. I pronounced the name wrong, and so this was a completely eye-opening experience for me. So I went to an information session and just started meeting with various recruiters. And I guess they didn't think I was the worst person in the world. They just got to give me an opportunity for an internship, which turned into a full-time offer. And so I ended up there. So I was working in New York as an investment banker at Goldman Sachs.
That's really funny you say that. Actually, just recently, are you getting any feedback on my audio?
Just a little bit. It's not too bad though.
So it's really funny you say that, because actually just recently we had Adrian Omer, who's at Kresge Foundation, and he's on their investment team at the Kresge Foundation. And he was talking about how he was at, where did he go to school? The Washington, D.C. school. Oh my gosh. Georgetown. Yes, thank you. I was like, he went to Georgetown and had the exact same experience where like people were like, hey, why don't you go into investment banking? And then he was like, Goldman Sachs. And then I think it was Goldman anyway. And he had told his mom like, oh yeah, I'm going to an interview at Goldman Sachs. And she's like, what is that? Like a restaurant or something? Yeah. and then he ended up like this same kind of thing. And I was like, man, all these people that are going to Goldman being like, so what would you say you do here? I love that. Okay, so then what happened?
Yeah, so I mean that was an incredible experience for me, right? It was opportunity to be in New York City, working a lot, but got to work on some pretty cool things. I got to be on the team that raised the money for the San Francisco 49ers stadium out in Santa Clara. So, it was $1 billion financing for that stadium, and got to be out there wearing a hard hat, but also talking to investors. And so it was really a lot of great exposure and a lot of learning. And then also got to be on the team that sold DirecTV to AT&T, which was pretty cool to be a part of, and really saw in that the only difference between a really small deal and a really large deal is just a lot of zeros. They all require a lot of work. And then I ended up after I left there, I went to this private equity firm called the Carlyle Group. I also had no idea what private equity was when I was, getting started in investment banking. And I remember somebody mentioning private equity, and I'm like, well, what is that? And then there were various programs out there, like one called SEO, that really helped me to get educated about the space and to present a window of opportunity that I was able to take advantage of to help me out in getting there. And then I had a great experience there. And then after being an investor at the Carlyle Group, the Harvard Business School took a chance on me. So I went out to the business school in Boston. And after I graduated from business school, I was... I like
how you said the business school in Boston. Can we just pause on that? The Harvard Business School, that's so fancy.
No, I mean, for me, it was just a dream to have the opportunity to go to school there based on where I came from and my family background. So it was an incredible experience. And then, after business school, I was a family friend who was launching a construction technology company, invited me to help him build that company in Nashville, Tennessee. So I went there, was there for a year, eventually transitioned my role from an operating role to a strategic advisory role. And that's where Breadless really came into the picture.
Oh, awesome. Talk a little bit about Breadless and kind of like, I think it's interesting because a lot of people are just like right now being like, oh man, the small business community is really taking a hit this year. And you're kind of like the opposite, being like, now is the time, and really like jumping in with both feet. And like you guys are opening, what day are you guys opening the downtown location?
Yeah, so exciting news. Yesterday, we just got approval from Detroit to begin our our outfit of the location. So hopefully in the next 2 months, we should be open. And this is right on the riverfront. So the intersection of Larned Street and Joseph Campo. So right downtown, but about a mile out of downtown, but right in the community near the riverfront. So super excited to be opening before summertime.
Yeah, that is. Okay, talk a little bit about Breadless, and then because I feel like you really did a great job of learning the industry, and you're not somebody who's hey, I'm out of finance. I'm sure I can do this whole business thing, start my own business thing. I feel like you really learned the industry prior to just it's not like you're just launching it day one and being I know what I'm doing. So talk a little bit about that.
So, it's funny. So I guess Breadless really came into the picture in 2019. But the way I think about it is that Breadless came into the picture ever since I was a little kid. I think back to why this ultimately happened. With the area where I grew up, my mom was working so much as getting up at 3 a.m. and going to every sports practice, et cetera. She didn't always have time to cook. And so the options that were available in my neighborhood were just burgers, fries, fried food, and bread, right? Which is obviously not conducive to a healthy, active lifestyle. And so I remember at one point, even before I ramped up in athletics, I remember a kid teased me for having a gut, right? And nobody wants to hear that, right? Especially as a little kid. So that made a major impact, on my life, and that's what helped to really push me to become a great athlete. And so I maintained a health and fitness lifestyle all throughout college. And then when you go into the working world, working in finance in New York City, I was working 80 to 100 plus hours a week. And so I adopted a low carb lifestyle to try to maintain that level of fitness. And the options were just not really great. It was really all throughout the day. Either if you wanted to eat healthier, right, sandwiches, wraps, and salads, right? And sandwiches and wraps were really high in carbs, and salads could be great at times. I love a good salad packed with meat, but I just didn't want one for every single meal, right? Or they weren't very portable. So I wanted sort of that sandwich use case. So I was the guy going in every restaurant for the past 10 years saying, can I get a lettuce bun or a lettuce wrap instead of bread? And the options coming back were just slimy, sloppy, falling apart, inconsistent, or felt like it was the afterthought or the ugly stepchild on the menu. And it was frustrating.
Plus, you're that friend who just goes in and modifies every order.
That's me.
Go with a group of friends to somewhere, and there's the one person being and can you have no cheese? But what do you cook it with on the grill? I'm always we can't be friends anymore.
Right.
We're friends now. You need to sit at that table over there.
Exactly, right? Can I get a slice of pizza without the bread? Right, exactly. So, I was that guy making the special request everywhere, asking for the lower carb option, the gluten-free option, and it was exhausting, right? And at every business meeting, they just have these sandwiches, these small sandwiches. So I'm the guy removing the bread and just eating the meat. So after living that way for 10 years, I eventually in 2019, it finally hit me this is kind of ridiculous. Why is it so difficult to get a delicious sandwich without bread with any consistency whatsoever? And it dawned on me, a place should exist that serves delicious sandwiches without bread as the core product, that they're investing in creating a high quality experience, but that also tastes good every single time. And over the course of my life, you've always thought that healthy means that it has to be non-flavorful or bland. And I was thinking well, why is that? And that shouldn't be the case. And so that was the idea behind Breadless. And I remember I was taking photos of all these products and texting them to my fiancée at the time. And when I said a place needs to exist that creates delicious sandwiches without bread, and that needs to be a quick service restaurant chain that we can access conveniently and accessibly throughout the country, she started texting me fire emojis and said, I think that this could be real. And I was at a point where I was like, well, I'm willing to explore this and to see where this could lead to, because I was deeply passionate about it, all leading back to not having accessible options when I was a little kid, which was a trend throughout my entire life, right? And so from there, thought process was, well, how can we get something into the market very cheaply and affordably and efficiently? And so the first thought, me and my fiance just started making our own versions of these sandwiches for lunch, because we were eating this way throughout the day. And then we realized really quickly that neither one of us is actually a technical chef. Neither one of us actually worked in the restaurant industry. So we wanted to bring in a chief product officer who had that expertise. So she recommended, we actually reached out to a good mutual friend of ours named Ryan Salter, who's now chief product officer, co-founder of Breadless, who had opened Angel of Harlem in New York, had launched multiple food service brands, went to the International Culinary Center, and he helped us to refine the concept even from thinking about just lettuce wraps to leafy super greens like red Swiss chard, turnip greens, collard greens, packed in nutritional value, but also chef-crafted combinations, because Ryan actually eats bread. So we were like, we need a product that you as a bread eater would love to eat, right? Because I'm the easy one who's waiting for this product, but we need also a product that people who like bread would love to eat as well. So we developed like a very simple version of our product. And then I basically moved up from Nashville to Ann Arbor. My fiance was at Michigan getting her MBA, and she had 2 roommates. I couldn't officially move in. So I'm also, in Cleveland and in Ann Arbor, like splitting time, as well as trying to get a product to the market. So the thought process was the low hanging fruit, if you will, were gyms. So I just started calling various gyms all throughout Detroit, like LA Fitness, Crunch Fitness, the YMCA, Fitness Works, etc., saying, hey, we're selling delicious sandwiches without bread. And all these general managers were like, wait a minute, I hate bread. This sounds great. Come on in.
They're like, wait a minute, I hate bread. As they're like doing one of the, they're like, oh, wow, I hate bread. Yeah.
And so, and sometimes they weren't even, I would walk into the gym and I didn't even have like a meeting set, but I would find out the general manager's name and be like, I have a meeting with so-and-so. And then that person would come out like, hey, I'm Mark from Breadless. But they ended up connecting with what we were trying to do and allowed us to basically have a fold out table where we're selling sandwiches to patrons in the gym with a standing banner. And that's really kind of where we got started. And then, because I didn't have significant expertise in the QSR space, I thought, well, I want to learn as much as possible, to your point. Sorry?
What's QSR?
Oh, sorry. A quick service restaurant.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah. So, basically fast food, quick service, fast casual, something where you're getting served quickly food. I didn't have a lot of experience in that space specifically, and was just selling product, beta testing, if you will. And so I wanted to get a job actually for $10 an hour making sandwiches, so I could learn sort of sandwich line at a local sandwich shop. And that's where I, was really trying to make sure that I understood the flow and the operations of a restaurant. And so, worked.
What? Oh, first of all, wait. So when you went into the sandwich shop and you'd be like, I just finished at Harvard. I was wondering if I could have a job here. Like, were they like, yeah, cool.
It was a very interesting interview experience. I actually got declined at one sandwich shop. So they declined me for the opportunity. And then the other one, I was, I just said, frankly, I'm ServSafe Manager certified. My wife's my fiance is in business school over here. At some point in the future, I, may want to open or operate a restaurant. So I want to get some experience, and I'm a hard worker. So I'll do a great job for you. You won't need to train me very much. And the GM was basically like, we need bodies. And so get in there. And
yeah,
that's what the conversation was really. And so I went in there and I just tried to do a really good job and learn a lot and, contribute and do everything from mopping the floors, cleaning the drains, to restocking shelves, making sandwiches, everything that you needed to do. Right. And I was, not some of the people I was working with were 17 years old, 18 years old, 19 years old. And, I'm 30 years old, but, I have my hat on and I'm in there and we're all just trying to do one job to serve customers, So
I used to work at Panera Bread when I was like in high school and early college. And I like totally can envision this. Like I was like, oh my gosh, he's that guy, like the guy that we were all like, how come that guy is working here? He's ruining our vibe.
I tried to do what I could to increase the vibe. I was about trying to bring energy into the establishment, and we were having a lot of fun. So actually, I still have I still have really great memories of the people that I was working with there. But ultimately, that was a phenomenal experience for me. And then obviously my fiance was at Michigan getting her MBA. And so she, as a co-founder of Breadless, is telling all of her classmates about this. And they're all like, wait a minute, we have all these student clubs and we need catering all the time. Can we cater Breadless? And we're like, absolutely, we can cater Breadless, right? And have no idea what we're doing and just figuring out, leveraging Ryan's expertise and leveraging like what I was learning and trying to do the best we could. And so, but that was an incredible experience for us catering. And so then we also were catering for a bunch of local businesses throughout Detroit as well, like Coac Detroit, House of Pure Vin, which was our first catering opportunity where we we weren't even selling product then. We were just giving product away. We asked people to try our food, and the only thing we asked for was to fill out a feedback form, right? So we aggregated a lot of feedback and data from our various customers throughout that process. Then we did pop-ups at Tech Town, Coac Detroit, Bedrock, et cetera, to just get our feet wet, if you will, and learn as much as we could. And it was not very expensive for us to do that.
Yeah, that's great. I love being able to like test things out when it's like hard to do that as a small business owner too. And like, I'll just be like, I don't know, I'll just throw this up on the website and see what happens. Just like,
That's what you need to do though. It makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like, so starting like in the investment world where you're kind of like the one providing the financing to the companies and kind of like looking at it like overlord style to like now being in the trenches and growing a business. Like I feel like it's such a perspective change. So like, how do you think that like investors could be more helpful to founders?
I would say there's two ways that I think about that. I mean, from one standpoint, I think there's sort of pre-becoming an investor, and the other is like post-becoming an investor. So I think pre-being an investor, there's a lot of opportunity to provide opportunities that aren't otherwise there, and to provide access to resources. And I realize even just for people like me who had a window of opportunity that I was able to take advantage of to go to places like Brown and Harvard, et cetera. But there's a lot of people who are like me who may have not met that guy at football practice to give them that opportunity, et cetera, who are very talented and want to bring something into the world, but may not know all the tools, may not have the connection, et cetera. So lowering the barrier to entry through even milestone-based funding models, or just putting content marketing out there to educate people and provide tools and resources for people and communities is all really valuable, I think, pre-investment. And I think post-investment, it's really about empathy and just trying to add value. So investors who have had experience as an entrepreneur can add value to entrepreneurs and empathize, but also just recognizing that if you're trying to build something big and you're starting from scratch, there's a lot that you don't know that you need to figure out, right? And so helping to make it a little less difficult as an entrepreneur is something that is massively valuable and beneficial. So that's everything from helping to provide introductions for future teammates, suppliers, just technology resources, PR resources, whatever it may be, but help the founders get where they need to go along that journey. And just for example, we've been extremely grateful for the investors that we've had from Cackle, and Brainchild. Introduced us to our design development firm and had me speak to other founders in their portfolio, which is helpful. And also another investor introduced us to our branding firm, which is we're going to be launching a whole rebrand before we open, and it helped us with that. And then Detroit Venture Partners and being a part of the Dan Gilbert family of companies has been absolutely incredible as well. They've been helping us in all sorts of ways, from through Rock Ventures with PR and marketing, as well as even they introduced our first key hire in the company as well. So resources like that are massively beneficial. So I think there's an opportunity for a lot of investors to think about how can we authentically add value, because it helps them at the end of the day as well, right? They're investing so that they can make a lot of money eventually at the end of the day. So the more things that they can do to reduce the risk of the entrepreneur making a false step helps them and helps the entrepreneur. And so it's truly a symbiotic, positive relationship that I think more investors should be constantly thinking about how they can do that. And also being a founder, you're starting a company from scratch can be lonely, right? And I've been very grateful to have a great team around me, from Ryan, product officer, co-founder, and my wife LC as well, and some of our first key hires as well. But for some people, if you're founding something alone, it can be very lonely. So helping to create that community amongst founders in your portfolios to bounce ideas off one another, to share learnings, and hey, I went through this hiring process, and what was that like for you? How did you think about compensation? How did you think about all these things? That can be massively beneficial.
Yeah, I definitely think making those connections is so key, and definitely the connections with fellow founders that are in your same industry and being like, oh yeah, I'm at this point. What did you do about that? Or something. It's just because you're right. A lot of times, I'll just be like, what about this idea? And we'll bounce it around colleagues and stuff. But then other than that, we're like, who do we even ask about that? What? There'll be things where we'll all be like, yeah, I don't know. Should we buy a book or learn that way? Or who do we think is doing it well, and can we just copy what they're doing? Sometimes you just got to figure it out that way.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And so that's why I was thinking about how can we build an arsenal of various people or a village around us to try to help us. So we actually have pretty diversified base of investors, some that have opened and ran restaurant groups, and have been very helpful. From I'll send a text message about I'm trying to negotiate this lease, how do I think about this, how do I think about that, and responding back and providing helpful feedback. Or whether it was some of the first people that were hiring, how did you think about hiring people for these various locations? And so just all those related aspects, it's very important, I think, to build that village around you who can add expertise in different areas, right? And that's everything from the industry specific nuances of whatever you're working on, for us in the restaurant industry and the quick service space, to also financing, et cetera, right? So it's important to have, I think, a diversified pool around you. And if you don't have that pool, then I think being very transparent about what you don't have and asking as many people as possible and just getting introductions.
Yeah, that's is my audio?
That was weird, but you're back now.
Okay. I was like, we're having so many audio problems. Where actually I say we, but it's only me. I have so many audio problems.
we're in this together, so a team effort.
Yes. So we work with a lot of economic development organizations, and I definitely over the last year, they've been like, how do we better help the small business community? How do we understand needs of small businesses in the last year, but even always are just constantly evolving, and you don't really have a gauge on what resources are available and are working for the community and which ones aren't, and things like that. So I guess the same question when it comes to you're launching this business and you kind of have made really significant progress and traction and are still kind of in the thick of it. When you think about economic developers and policymakers that you've kind of interacted with or haven't interacted with, what would you say would be your if they could help with this, or how do you think that they would be able to help be more helpful to you as you've been over the last year?
That's a great question. I think, as you said, we are very much still in the early parts of our journey, and we'll take all the help that we can get. And, it takes a village. So, some of the things that have been processes for us are just include, getting permits, getting open, finding space, making sure that everything that we need for that space to open and to meet all the requirements that we need to meet for the city is a massive process, right? And so anything that we can do to streamline getting entrepreneurs, businesses open as efficiently as possible, I think it would be massively beneficial for not only us, but all the small businesses out there who are also trying to introduce a product to the world and get in the hands of customers, right? Every day you're not opening is a day that you can't be interacting with your customers and contributing to the community. So I think helping to find policies to get businesses open faster and more efficiently, and also funded, right? And because in the early days, right, your working capital and cash flow matters a lot. So providing whether it's tax credits or further grants and or ways for you to get access to different types of supplier connections or just different types of credits or resources or tax credits or funding mechanisms and also just streamlining the hurdles that you need to get through to get businesses open faster are things that immediately come to mind that would be massively beneficial to us, right? Like we want to bring nutritious breadless sandwiches into neighborhoods everywhere and create a home for those who have always had to order off of the menu and to make special requests, right? So we want to be able to get these locations open, starting right here in Detroit and then expanding elsewhere. And so the faster we can get approvals for things, right, the faster that we can move so that we can get healthy options in the communities that taste good.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I see a lot of like economic developers taking the approach of, trying to assess needs and reduce barriers to entry and things like that. And I love that role because it just feels like, yeah, you're enabling a business owner who's trying to accomplish something to be able to more easily accomplish that versus like seeing some organizations who launch like a lot of training programs and are like, oh, you can come here and we'll offer you this, when you're like, I don't really need to learn that from the government. Like I can learn that from an investor if you just like introduce me to one. So I think that is really interesting, like reducing obstacles for entrepreneurs. That would be lovely. So what guidance do you have for fellow founders and small business owners as they kind of try to get their names out there, attract customers, hire employees, grow their business? Like basically people who are like just a couple months ago, like in the trenches from you, and now looking back at like the last year you've had, like what advice would you have for those founders?
I would just encourage them to get out there, right? Like just put your product out there and go talk to people, go talk to customers. Like you learn incredible things and you build that village around you. I can tell you like one poignant story for us. Well, we're doing one of these pop-ups at the gym, LA Fitness, and there was a note for me on the counter from this woman named Tracy to call her. And I'm thinking, like, what did I do? Like, why do I need to call Tracy? What happened? And I called Tracy, and she's like, is this Mark? Is this Breadless? And like, yes. And she's like, are you set up yet? And like, well, no, I'm just getting set up now. And she's like, okay, don't go anywhere. And I was like, okay, I won't go anywhere. And then I get set up. Tracy comes back into LA Fitness and buys 2 sandwiches. And I'm like, Tracy, like, why did you do this? And she said, well, my doctor's been telling me I need to eat healthier, and it's very difficult to find healthy options in the community. And this product tastes good and it's healthy. So thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. And that was mind blowing to me. I'm like, what kind of world do we live in where Tracy who worked out that morning, has to drive back to the gym to buy 2 sandwiches from a guy with a folding out table? She can't find healthy, tasty options in her community. And that like was very poignant to me and resonated. Like, wow, like Detroit really needs us. The Midwest really needs us. And a lot of people some people would try to encourage us, well, you should launch Breadless out in San Francisco, Miami, California, all these places. And because they're quote unquote healthier lifestyle people, and they say Midwesterners don't eat healthy food. Well, as a Midwesterner and as, my wife from Detroit as well, like people from the Midwest don't have access to healthy food that tastes good. And we believe that if you give them access to this food that tastes good, that's not just bland, that wasn't an afterthought, that you will have people that want to eat your product. And Tracy was a prime example of that. But we wouldn't have learned that, right, unless we were just out there with the folding out table in the gym, talking to people like Tracy. So to all the people that are launching something, I would say to just get out there, talk to your customers, and even helps you to improve your story, right? I was thinking about, like, I've been eating this way for the past 10 years, but talking to people about like why we're starting Breadless really made me realize, wow, this actually went back to when I was a little kid and not having access to these healthy foods in our community, and then someone teasing me, and all of that started Breadless. So it wasn't just what I was doing the past couple of years, but just talking to people about what we were doing and why helped bring all that out, right? So, and you end up, I'm a huge believer in serendipity. So the more people that you talk to about what you're doing, the more people you'll find who will come around you who will be massively beneficial. Like, you can't go it alone. And I'm significantly grateful for all of the people who have come around us to help us just to get to this point. Like, we have a very long journey ahead of us. We're not going to stop until we create hundreds of people who will become entrepreneurs through affordable franchises. while also giving their people healthy food in the communities. And that's what we're about. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity out there to continue to just talk to as many customers as you can, as many people as you can, to help build your tribe around you, help you navigate through any circumstances that you're going to encounter, because there's going to be things that you don't know how to handle, and you need to have those people around you to answer questions.
Yeah, that's really great thing about that's a really great thing about like the serendipitous moments and like kind of things just happening by happenstance. We had a guest on, and now I'm not remembering who it was, a few months ago, who was saying that they thought one of the biggest setbacks for entrepreneurs of the pandemic was that there were not these like go to a networking event and you bump into someone and be like, oh yeah, I'm working on this. And they're like, oh, really? Me too. Like those kinds of moments, because the interaction has been like, okay, we'll plan a video call at this particular time with you and me kind of thing. So you don't have those necessarily those like chance interactions anymore. So like, I think that was something that I was like, I never thought of that, like how much my business might be impacted by the fact that like, you don't just run into people anymore. You have to like make a point to see them. And so then after that, I was really trying to like, okay, like if we haven't talked to people recently, like, even if we don't have a, like, you know, we're trying to accomplish A, B, C, we want to talk to you about those three things, like trying to get those just like coffees and virtual whatevers in with people just to catch up and see what they're doing. Cause I think those things lead to a lot of different successes and growth opportunities. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So then what's next for Breadless? Like what's on the horizon? Where can people go to find out more about the company, get some sandwiches?
That's right. Yeah. So what's next is us getting open, right? Like our number one priority is getting open so that we can bring these options into the community. Our location is going to be at the intersection of Larned Street and Joseph Campo, right downtown, right outside of downtown, between Jefferson and Larned Street, close to the riverfront. And our website is gobreadless.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Breadless. And we're looking to get open and bring these healthy options first to Detroit before expanding. And everything we're about is bringing these nutritious breadless options into neighborhoods everywhere and creating a home for all the people that have ever had to make a special request on the menu. So if you've ever been the one to say, I want the low carb, I want the gluten-free, the paleo, the vegan, the vegetarian, we have a great tasting option for you that we've intentionally crafted to create a high quality experience. And we eventually, like what I'm super excited about, to be honest, is after we're able to do this and show that and create a model that really works, is over the long term, I'm super excited about our ability to create a lot of entrepreneurs, because we have a very small footprint model and we have a very simple menu. So I want to be able to lower the barriers to entry for a lot of people to become franchisees who would have never otherwise been able to afford the cost of becoming a franchisee, so that we can build wealth in these communities while they're feeding people healthy food at the same time. We can truly help to democratize the health and wealth of neighborhoods everywhere. And that's what I'm super excited about, what we're doing. But obviously, baby steps, we're super focused right now on opening location number one and providing a phenomenal customer service to the people of Detroit. And so we're super excited to be here, and very grateful for all the people coming around us to support, and grateful to be on the show as well.
Yay. Yeah, so much for joining. You're so like strategic and inspiring. I'm like so excited. I also do Whole30, so I'm like, oh, finally a plate, literally.
Love it.
Like, so I'm like super excited about that. So thanks everyone for watching the Cackle today. If you want to see our latest research on the small business and startup community, you can download it at entrypointmi.com. You should also check out gobreadless.com, which is so awesome, and like check out when they're opening. And remember, if you're interested in exploring strategies to better support the small business community and be more inclusive in your programming, definitely join us. So talk to you all soon.
Thank you so much.